Chapter 13. Captain Korea's Mean Left Hook. Leo dreamed often of beaches and bombs, but mostly beaches. The silky silt sifting between his fingers, the perfect holes mysteriously bored into shells littering the water's edge, the sting of salt spray in his eyes, the seaweed underfoot, and the gentle rocking as he knelt next to his brother to see who could stay upright in the waves the longest, who could not be moved by the ocean's push and pull. Leo could always be moved. Sometimes they would all be there, his mother and father, him and Gareth. Sometimes it would only be Leo. Those dreams, the ones when he suddenly was all by himself, those were the worst. He would run along the lapping line of the ocean, staring out into the water, looking for their bobbing heads, his family, afraid they'd gone under, that something had grabbed hold of their ankle and pulled, causing them to slip farther and farther into the deep. He would hold his breath, waiting for them to emerge from the sea, or to suddenly appear behind him instead, wrapping a towel around his shivering shoulders, telling him it was all right, not to worry, everyone was safe. And then, sometimes, Leo's eardrums would split as the whole world lit up in a flash, as if it was having its picture taken, one moment preserved for eternity. And Leo turned to see the curls of smoke rising into the gray-fogged sky, like gnarled fingers reaching upward before billowing into a black fist. And he would be trapped there, between the ocean that stretched on for eternity and threatened to swallow you whole, and the raging fire that would eat you alive if you got too close. And Leo, still alone, dropped to his knees in the wet sand, rocking himself back and forth, waiting to wake up as the water crept closer and closer. Somehow, Leo slept, on orders from the captain. Constantly running from bounty hunters and security bots can be exhausting, but how he had fallen asleep among the earthquake rumble from the creature next to him was a mystery. Boo's snore was louder than the Icarian excavator. It was like 1,000 chainsaws cutting down 1,000 trees. How long had he slept? Minutes? Hours? Were they almost there? Had they finished the jump? No. Leo would have felt that. How much sleep it was. It must have done him some good because Leo felt instantly awake, hyper-aware of everything around him, his brain in overdrive. Behind him 1,000 snare drums rolled. He couldn't stay in this room any longer. Leo carefully extricated himself from the Quiletti's arms, marveling for a moment at how peaceful Boo looked in his sleep. Leo passed his scuffed boots and borrowed jacket in a heap, decided he didn't need either, and made his way through the door and up the corridor, wondering if Baz was awake, and more importantly, if he'd come up with a plan for rescuing Leo's father yet. After all, they'd agreed. They were going in, but they hadn't decided on how. He was nearly to the cockpit when the sound of voices stopped him. Coming from the captain's tiny quarters, the closed door, not so thick that Leo couldn't make out the muffled conversation. Kat was speaking. "So that's your angle then?" she said. "I knew there had to be something." "It's not an angle," Baz told her. "It's the only thing that makes sense. Something's going on here. My gut tells me Leo's father is worth a lot more than 100 cores of V, more than even Leo realizes." "So we're going to be kidnappers now?" "We're survivors, Kat. We do what it takes, and this could be big. We sneak in there, get Dr. Fender, then ransom him to the Ikari for a small fortune. Leo gets his father back, we get the money. They both go back to the coalition, and we ride off into the sunset. Everybody wins. At least everyone that matters." "Not sure Leo will see it that way." "Then he'll get over it," Baz shot back. "We're pirates, Kat. Last I checked, I want to do right by the kid, but the crew comes first." There was a pause. Leo pressed his ear against the cold metal door. If one of them opened it, they would catch him eavesdropping for sure. "Fine, I get it. But what if we're too late?" Kat asked. "What happens to Leo then?" It took a moment for Leo to realize what she meant by too late. It was something he wouldn't let himself imagine. Not now. Not when he was so close. But it was possible. Possible that his father was no longer waiting for him. Possible that the Jarek had already gotten whatever they wanted out of him and didn't need him any longer. "Kat, I know what you're thinking," Baz started. "Yeah, I'm thinking that I was 16 when you found me. You took me in. You could have left me to fend for myself, but you didn't. You took in Boo when his entire planet kicked him out. You look after Skits. You brought us all together. You made us a family. And Leo is a scrapper," Baz said, cutting her off. just like you. Because he's not one of us. He's coalition. He's the reason people like us are stuck floating around the galaxy dodging laser blasts, stealing V, and scraping together our livelihood. There's no room for him in our world, just like there's no room for us in his. Leo felt something in his chest, working its way up into his throat. Not that python squeezing of an oncoming asthma attack, but a pang of disappointment, a strange and sudden sadness. He swallowed hard, but it was stuck there. In the silence that followed, Leo tried to imagine the look Kat was giving her captain. It must have been serious, because when Baz spoke again, his voice was softer, apologetic. Look, I get it, I do. If for some reason we can't find Leo's father, we will find a way to make sure he gets back to the coalition where he belongs, all right? Now, if there's nothing else... No, that's all, Captain, Kat replied evenly. In that case, you should probably go make sure everyone's up. We'll be coming out of the jump soon. Oh no, I'm not waking Boo. You know how he gets. So don't. Make the kid do it. He owes us one. Leo quickly pulled away from the door and tiptoed across the grated floor, hoping to slink away, but Kat caught him halfway down the corridor. Great, you're awake, she said, her voice back to business as usual. Go get your boots on. It's almost time. And wake up Boo while you're at it. Me? Leo repeated, not trying to seem too concerned, afraid Kat would figure out he'd been listening. Yeah, you may want to use the wake-up stick. We keep it by the door. Leo nodded and walked slowly back to the bunks, that lump still stuck in his throat. Boo's rumbling grew more noticeable with every step, sounding like an explosion when Leo opened the door. And sure enough, there, leaning against the wall, stood a meter-long piece of pipe. Make the kid do it. He owes us one. Leo shouldn't have been surprised. Bastion Black was good at keeping score and finding a way to stay ahead. Everything could be traded or exchanged. Everything had value. Everything had a price, even Leo's father. But what if we're too late? Then apparently Leo would be handed back to the coalition or maybe ransomed to them. If Baz thought he could get something for him, right back where he belonged. Except Leo wasn't sure where he belonged anymore. No ship, no family. What did that leave him with, really? At least here on the Icarus, he wasn't alone. But Baz was right. These weren't his people, and this certainly wasn't his home. It doesn't matter, Leo told himself. His dad was alive. He would know what to do. He and Leo could find Gareth, and they would all be together again. Then they could go somewhere safe, somewhere where Leo wouldn't have to deal with pirates ever again. He held fast to that hope. He had to. But first he had to get his father back, which meant he had to wake up Boo. Leo took the stick in both hands. Wasn't there some old saying about sleeping dogs? The Coletti had a few dog-like features, the snout, the dark leathery skin on the palms of his hands, the thick pelt of fur from the lower bunk. Boo continued to drone. Leo took the thin metal pipe carefully to stand the full distance away. Boo, he said, followed by a little jab in his shoulder. The pile of fur didn't stir. Boo, Leo said louder, poking him a little bit harder this time. Nothing. Then, Boo! Leo didn't know what startled him more, the growl escaping from the Coletti's lips, or the speed with which he tore the pipe out of Leo's hands, bending it almost in half, teeth bared, and he was looking wildly around the room. Boo! It's just me! Leo! You were asleep! Leo said quickly, then added, Cat made me do it! Boo looked down at the twisted pipe in his hands, and then back up at Leo, recognition dawning. He pawed at his ear Leo had poked him in, and then sat up and set the bent pipe gently on the floor by his feet. He stretched all four arms and used the three unbandaged ones to scratch his chest. Oh, hey, Leo. Are we there yet? Almost, Leo said, swallowing hard, heart thumping. Good. Sorry if I scared you. I was having this strange dream. I was back on my planet. They let me return. Except it was all different. Nobody recognized me, and I didn't recognize them. My house, my clan, they were all strangers. You ever have dreams like that, where everything seems sort of familiar, but you still, feel like you don't belong? All the time, Leo admitted. Boo nodded, and then he looked at the bent pipe at his feet. He picked it up and tried to wrench it back into shape. Instead, he managed to snap it in two. Time for a new whacking stick, he said, staring at the broken pieces in his hand. The Icarus finished its jump just as Leo was slipping into his second boot. He shut his eyes tight and squeezed himself into a ball, determined not to lose it over Kat's borrowed jacket, afraid of what she might do to him. Finally, the moment passed, and he made his way to the cockpit, where the crew of the Icarus was already gathered. Leo stood in the corner, careful not to bump into Skits, who seemed to be humming, as if her battery had been overcharged. Exciting, isn't it? She asked. Leo nodded. That was one word for it. He had several others, but the hope of seeing his father again beat back the unease, or maybe just mixed it with one giant cauldron of anxiety bubbling through his insides, making him feel queasy. That's it, Baz said. Halidrin 5. The planet did not look welcoming. Nothing like Earth looked from space. It was entirely brown, like a dried leaf and crumbles at the touch. You get used to thinking you're only of your own world, with its swirling white cotton clouds hovering over a bed of ocean blue. Anything else seemed strange, alien, inhospitable. Of course, this planet was under the control of the Jarek, which automatically made it inhospitable. My father's really down there somewhere? Leo asked. Provided the information we got from Mac is accurate. The Jarek mining facilities on this planet's far side, Baz continued. Can't get a reading on the surface with a dense atmosphere, but there don't appear to be any ships in orbit. Could mean security is lax. That's some serious wishful thinking, Kat said. I'm nothing if not an optimist. So what's the plan? Boo asked. Going guns blazing? Since when do you carry a gun? The robot asked. Quillettis don't need one, Baz answered for him. They have other hidden talents. But no, a headlong assault would be suicide. So we sneak in? Leo asked, realizing he was using the word we again. Even better, Kat said. We mutiny. Mutiny. Leo knew the word. Pirate crews weren't always even loyal among themselves. Whether it was the storied one who sailed the seven seas back on Earth, or the bandits who raided spaceships for V out here in the void. Sometimes, if they felt they were being treated unfairly, they would band together and turn on their captain taking over the ship. There was never any talk of mutiny aboard the Beagle. Captain Sato was well respected, and the punishment if you got caught was severe. Leo had never met anyone willing to turn their back on the Coalition anyway. Oh, until a few days ago, at least. Wait, so you're going to turn Bastion into the Jarg? Skitz answered. The robot sounded concerned. That's the plan. First officer learns about the steadily rising bounty on her captain's head and coordinates an uprising of the crew. She captures him and takes control of the ship and steers towards the nearest Jark outpost she can find, with the hopes of turning him in for a reward. We all know how much Baz prizes his notoriety, Kat said. Time to see if all that hard work has paid off. It was her idea, Baz said, though Leo couldn't tell if he was praising her for her genius or assigning blame ahead of time. Maybe both. Okay, that's how we get in. But what about once we're there? Boo wanted to know. That's where it gets froggier, Baz said. While Kat's collecting the reward up for my head, you and Skitz will sneak off the Icarus, find the nearest computer terminal, and feed it this. He reached down by his seat and pulled an empty cardboard box from his satchel. You want me to feed a computer a Twinkie? Boo asked. Baz turned the box upside down, and another data chip slid out. One more little gift from Mac and Dev. It's a worm, a nasty one that should temporarily cripple the Jarek security system base-wide. Locks, alarms, cameras, defense grids. All you two have to do is find a terminal and plug it in. That is,